Hello everyone, and welcome to part 3 for Python sockets. As mentioned in part 2, there's not really anything left to talk about the module itself in order to learn how to use sockets. Part 1 pretty much covered all the important stuff. Instead, this video is one of a few videos that will cover various important things relating to network programming. In this video in particular, I'll be showing you how to program your server or client programs, how to serialize more complex data like dictionaries and objects to be sent through a socket. Now, I've never used the term serialize in the previous videos, so let's go over the term real quick. Serializing is basically the act of converting any data into a writable format, such as text or bytes. This lets us store or transmit the data elsewhere. We've technically done this several times already in the previous socket videos as well as in the file I/O videos. This is usually done in a way that allows us to load it back into its original state, like its object or dictionary or whatever format it may have started with. This is also known as deserializing the data. Let's start with a basic example using basic data types. It's pretty much going to be a refresher since we've already done a lot of stuff with this. So I've got our server and our client. The client here has XYZ in name, and we just got an integer, a float, a boolean, and a string. And what we do is we combine all the data together into a single string right here. And what I basically say is x equals the value of x, y equals the value of y, z equals the value of z, and name equals the value of name. And it all gets converted into a string. And then we encode it like normal to turn it into bytes before sending it off to the server. On the server side, once we receive it, we decode it, and then we split it by the semicolon delimiter that we use in the string into a list of the different elements. And then we just print out each element to present the data. We could take it a step further and split each element by the equal sign so we can extract the data and convert it back to its original form, but I was just going to keep it simple for this example here. So we have server 1 running. I'm going to run the client, and as you can see here, it's printing out the information that we sent over. For this next example, I'm going to show you how you can serialize data using the JSON module, and we're going to actually use classes in this example. So I've got two basic classes, a pilot and a ship, and the ship is just so that we can create a ship object and store it in the pilot object. Now the ship class is so that we can create a ship object to be stored inside the pilot object. This is so that I can show you that when you serialize an object, anything inside that object, including other objects, will be serialized in the process. So objects, attributes of the objects inside the objects, everything will get serialized. Which brings us to the method inside the pilot class, serialize. So what serialize does is it calls upon the JSON module function dumps. Dumps takes in objects and converts it into a JSON string. Now, not all objects are going to get properly serialized with the JSON dumps function. So in order to ensure that our object will get properly serialized, we have to specify a value for the default parameter inside the function. And this is not something I've made up. This is actually something you will find a lot of people post is the common solution to this particular problem. And that is a lambda function to make sure your object can be fully serialized. So we specify for default lambda x colon x dot underscore underscore dict underscore underscore, basically the magic method dictionary. This will for the most part make sure that our object will be fully serialized. So when we call serialize, it will do this, and JSON dumps returns a string. It's going to become a JSON string, and it's going to be in the form of a string inside Python. And we store that in this data variable here. And then as you can see here, I'm going to print out the type of the data so you can see that it is a string. And then I'll print out the data itself so you can see the JSON information. Then like normal, we encode it and send it over to the server. On the server side, we receive it, we decode it, and then we also import the JSON module here so that we can load the data. Now JSON.loads will return a dictionary. So it will convert our JSON string into a dictionary. And then I just have this for loop where I go through the dictionary, print out all the keys, and print out the values that are mapped to those keys. And this will print out everything. It will print out the pilot object and all its information, and it'll even go through the ship and print out its information as well. So I've got server 2 running. I'm going to run the client. So type string, as you can see here, for the data. And then here's the JSON string itself. So name, Crozo, ID, 12345. And just so you're not confused, it's not printing out the class name ship in all lowercase. We have an attribute in our pilot object called ship that's storing the ship object information. That's why you're not going to see a name representation for pilot here. And inside ship, we've got name, hawk, type, frigate. And then over here, I print out the information. We got name equals Crozo, ID equals 12345, ship equals name equals hawk, type equals frigate. So that's how you can serialize your data with JSON and partially deserialize it. You can technically deserialize it back into its original object state. However, you would have to have the class definitions on the server side as well, and you would probably have to write your own code to perform that. I don't believe JSON has the ability to rebuild the information back into the original object by itself. I believe you would have to take the dictionary and rebuild those objects yourself. But if that's something you don't want to do, which is understandable, then fortunately for you, there is another module you can use that will allow you to serialize data and then deserialize it back into its original form, and that is Pickle. Pickle serializes object data directly into bytes, and it can deserialize those bytes back into the original object format, provided it has access to the class definitions, which is going to be demonstrated in this example here because, as you can see, I have class definitions for pilot and ship on both sides. But instead of converting it into a JSON string and then encoding that string, we just use Pickle to convert it into bytes and immediately send that information. Then on the server side, we receive that information. I'm going to print the information out on the server side so you can see what the bytes looks like after it's been pickled. And then I call pickle.loads on the byte data and store it in this variable called object. And then I'm going to treat that object as if it was a pilot object from this side and just call its attribute names, including the ship object and its attribute names. So it's going to be treated like an actual pilot object. In fact, actually, let me add this line here. So I'm going to print the type of the object to show that it's been deserialized back into a pilot object. So I've got the server running, and I'm going to run serialization example 3. So here's the byte data here before we deserialize it. Then after I deserialize it, I print out the type, and as you can see, it says it's a pilot object. And then I print out the attribute information of the pilot and the ship by just treating it like it was a pilot object and accessing its attributes like normal. So that's how you deserialize data using Pickle. And that's about it for advanced serialization of data over sockets in Python. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and if you did, then please hit the like button and leave a comment below to let me know what you think. And if you want to see more, head on over to Wayfair Coding Academy channel to check out my other content. And while you're there, subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on new stuff as it comes out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.